Hi folks, Helen Rosenzweig here from Impressence Web Studios again. We are continuing the blog series and we're going to be looking at blogging for non-fiction writers today. In the previous video, we looked at blogging for writers in general, but primarily focused on fiction and unpublished writers really. But now we're going to look more at non-fiction writers because blogging for non-fiction writers can be very different and it has a completely different strategy behind it, and you've actually got more opportunity for blogging with nonfiction. Okay. With nonfiction, we're talking generally about sort of how-to books, self-help, something that covers a very particular topic that people will, are looking for answers on or more insights on or help with, okay? So that's the kind of nonfiction we're talking about here. So in this case, you can actually start blogging before you've published your book, and it can be a really good idea to do that. One, you can be testing out reactions and responses. So sometimes before you even complete the book, you're testing out whether there is a demand for this topic, whether there's an interest in this topic, all right? So that can start steering you in that direction. So you can use that to test the market a little bit if you like. But also, because it takes a while to build your platform now, okay, make no mistake, it is not easy anymore. It used to be like 10 years ago, it was a lot easier to get visible quickly. It is not today because the market, and not just your market, just the whole internet is far more saturated now. So it takes a while to build your platform, build momentum and get seen. So it can be a really good strategy to start writing blogs before your book is published so that you're already getting seen. Okay, now, the blogs must be relevant to your topic. We're not talking about, blogging of, what your dog was doing today, unless your book is about dogs, okay? And you might even want to be really specific if your book probably needs to be about a particular breed of dog, right? So your blogs need to be relevant to your topic and they need to be answering someone's question. Okay, and honestly, in conjunction to this, you need a social media presence or some other way to then share those blogs, all right? Just posting blogs and hoping people will find them, that's taking a gamble. Yes, SEO, it will, it may slowly get found online, but you really need to also start building an audience that you can send those blogs to, if that makes sense. Okay. So for example, I have a client who has been writing about blogs on dyslexia. Writing about blogs on dyslexia for quite some time, and she has a book published on dyslexia. Okay. So this client has been doing this for a long time, long before she was my client, actually. And she gets good traffic to her website because people are looking for questions. So one of her most popular blogs, for example, is jobs for dyslexic people. So a lot of parents are looking, okay, how can I help my child? What sort of pathways for careers, for jobs are well suited for my child who has dyslexia? Okay, so she gets a lot of traffic with that. That's a great question to be answering. Obviously, people are wondering that. So that's an example. And she has, multiple blogs that sort of answer those questions. One of them's got to do with left-handedness with dyslexic people, really specific things, not vague. They answer a very specific question. There's a very specific topic that it covers. Okay, so that's really good for her. Now, the thing is, if you just blog in isolation like that, if just having your blogs is great. Okay, people get to your website, they get to that blog. Now you need to give them an opportunity to engage with you. And that's what a lot of people forget. When someone comes to your website through your blog, a blog that is relevant to the content that you're writing, remember we covered that first, okay. You don't want them to just read the blog and move on. you want them to engage. So there are two things primarily that you would want to give them the opportunity to do once they've landed on your blog, particularly if they've spent the time to read it. You need to present two options to them, both or either or, depending on your goals. If you've got a book out already, then present them with the opportunity to buy that book. Have that book featured on the bottom of your blogs or on the sidebar of your blogs so that it's there, and then they realize, oh, she's also written a book. Maybe this book would be useful for me. The other thing is to sign up to your mailing list, because that's moving people along your sales funnel, getting them into your mailing list. So at the bottom of your blogs, you might have a freebie, sign up to my mailing list. Now, I am going to talk about mailing lists as well in other videos, so stay tuned for that. But that's a really powerful tool for nonfiction writers if you use blogging in that way. So you've got to use it strategically. You've got to be deliberate, purposeful about the topics, the questions that you're answering, and then also strategically put in your book or at least your mailing list on those pages so that you can build your audience that way. Because again, people just coming along reading your blog, that's great. And you know what, if that's what you need, if that's what you feel called to do, just to present that information to help people, fabulous. That is great. But if you do have a book and a mailing list and you're trying to build those, then you use those opportunities. Now, I'm just going to double check my notes that I haven't missed anything for you. So I think if you have a nonfiction book, brainstorm some ideas. See if you think you have a set of blogs. Look, you don't have to blog forever, but if you can think of several topics, like 10 to 20 that you might slowly put out, that then can serve, like once the blog is published, particularly answering a question like that, it's going to keep serving you time and time again if it's relevant and it's getting traction in the search engines. So it's definitely part of a long-term strategy for your sales funnel. And look, at the end of the day, you're an author, you're in sales, okay? So you do need to think about sales funnels. So I hope this is cleared up for you if you're thinking about blogs, particularly for nonfiction authors, and you might want to brainstorm some ideas for that. But always with blogging, if you're just doing it because you feel pressured to do it and you don't have the time at the moment and your book's not ready yet, like take that pressure off yourself. But also just keep that in your mind if you are a nonfiction author, that blogging could be very useful and very powerful for helping your book reach your audience in the future. All right, until next time, I'll catch you later.